All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Excess Succeed. This is Gearface. I am joined, I've been graced once again by the presence of my good friend Blue. Blue, thank you so much for being here.
It's always a pleasure.
Really look,
Happy to be back.
yeah, happy to have you. Really looking forward to this one. We are talking about Iaquis today. Maybe Iaquis. Difficult to say. Um, no one knows because we can't ask him because he's not a real person. Um, he's a character from way back in Seventh Cross, a character I know very little about. Except that he's a cool samurai man, and that's good enough for me. I have it on good authority. Sometimes he's a mean samurai man. Um, get you a man who can do both. Uh, I have it on good authority that Blue's the person to talk to about Iaquis here, so I'm super excited to learn a little bit about him. Um, Couple disclaimers, as always, before we get started. Number one, we're going to be talking about playing Exceed to win on this show. It's not the only way to play Exceed. In fact, I think you should play Exceed for fun if the mood strikes you. Um, you will play longer, you will learn more by playing for fun. If the lines of play that we're describing on this lesson don't sound fun to you, you shouldn't play that way. You should play a way that you do find fun instead. Disclaimer number two is that we don't know everything. Um, Despite that, and despite the fact that Exceed is not a solved game, we're going to kind of talk like we know everything. Um, you're probably going to hear quite a bit of prescriptive advice, a lot of always do this, never do that. Take all that with a grain of salt. As mentioned, Exceed is not a solved game. If you have completely different ideas about how you should play Iaquis, uh, tell us why we're wrong. Doesn't mean that you're wrong. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, all that said, Blue, please, I would love to know about Iaquis.
Of course. You know, gonna be a pretty epic video because you already know about Sagat, and this
Yeah,
character is very similar to Sagat, as you
awesome.
probably have heard.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I feel like the in the Sagat lesson we were like a lot of the principles that we were talking about there. I feel like I had heard about from Iaquis just in like ambient conversation before.
yeah, yeah. So with that in mind, let's just get into the ability because it's the first similarity between them.
Right,
Sagat gets speed +1 speed. Iaquis gets +2 power. Numerically, that's stronger,
right.
and it exchanges, some of the safety of what Sagat gets from the +1 speed for much higher reward. Because +2 power is pretty nutty. That's straight up fierce. With
Yeah,
the exchange that the opponent gets to know what you're playing. So
sure.
whereas Sagat really values like mid speeds, and because you can make mid speeds into actually like just safe attacks, Iaquis is more about playing like on curve attacks. He really values like assault, grasp, because it turns out a 157 and a 1 to 3 6 5. Pretty mighty stat lines.
Right. Yeah. And it sounds like he kind of operates under a similar paradigm as Sagat of like make your opponent have it, where like,
Yeah,
yeah,
basically.
this assault hits for six, it would trade evenly with sweep. Do you have a sweep? First of all, if you do, awesome. I traded evenly with it, which is not something that assault normally does. If you don't, cool. I just win combat for free and pretty crushingly.
Yep, and similarly, you can do face up slows for forcing plays of, hey, would you like to cross out to a range where I fucking annihilate you?
Okay.
So we can talk about that more once we actually get into the kit. But yeah, so ability pretty good. Um, Similar to what I would recommend with Sagat, I would say that when you're first learning the character, just do face ups constantly. Um, because you'll learn pretty quickly when they were wrong. Because the actual like calculus as to when you should be doing it is like how likely do you think the attack is to hit, which is why on curve attacks are pretty good with it, versus the expected ability for the opponent to actually answer it,
Right.
which like requires like card counting, resource management, all that jazz.
Sure. And it obviously the math changes substantially if your opponent can threaten like a really overwhelming option at a certain range. Like put I wouldn't want to throw range one EX cross or face up cross against a Eugenia with 3 gauge, right? Like
Yeah, or
don't lose to your opponent's really messed up thing for free.
for another like inside of season 2 matchup, Iaquis has a bit of a hard time doing face ups into Lucia because Lucia's kit is very fast and generally has good answer shapes, especially into Iaquis's stuff.
Sure. So like the wisdom about like Sagat likes mid speeds because he can make mid speeds more consistent. When they're consistent, they often just win.
Yep.
Iaquis prefers on curve stuff because it turns out when you make those stronger, you just make them stronger. Against somebody like Lucia, it kind of feels like everything you throw is a mid speed, no matter what, because she has so many ways to dodge out of things. Is that kind of how the the play works out in practice?
Yeah. To a degree, obviously,
Okay,
like Lucia does have a limited number of things that actually answer stuff, but like you have to deal with the ride the lightnings and the downbursts
sure.
and
Yeah,
a couple other
you're
things. Bug Zapper is actually kind of relevant in that matchup, but like we're getting into too many specifics. If the opponent is really fucking fast, you should probably reevaluate how often you should be face upping. But into
right.
the average character, they probably are not really fucking fast because really being really fucking fast and exceed is kind of a rare trait.
Sure. And the received wisdom in that case is basically like I should be doing this more often than I think I should, naively, right? Like
Yeah, more or less.
I'm gonna lose so many mix-ups if I do that. Yeah, maybe, but maybe they don't have it, and I win combat crushingly. Um, uh, it is okay to do often, but not all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
And to quickly talk about the Exceed mode, I don't actually like the Exceed mode much, but it's very strong. It turns the character into like a Plague Knight esque trigger mixer.
Mm,
But instead of having like Plague Knight's randomness, he just chooses what he discards from hand.
okay.
It's really
So
stupid.
and I've noticed like glancing through his kit, we have like hit +1 power. It on Dragon's Tongue itself. This just me like if this didn't exist, for example, there wouldn't be a functional difference between Dragon's Tongue as printed and Dragon's Tongue the 1 to 3 4 5 draw a card on hit, right?
That
But
that is correct. Yeah.
because I have the hit power, that means that the Dragon Slayer can use it to get an additional bonus power onto whatever he wants.
Yep. And I
Okay.
probably will, when we're talking about the kit, just talk about the value of the triggers within the context of Dragon Slayer. But like the game plan to get to Dragon Slayer is basically the same as with every other Seventh Cross character, which is choose your two favorite TFs out of the three that Iaquis has, get them, and then either get the third one or get a gauge and flip, and then you're playing Dragon Slayer.
And just start doing things, right? Like the the way that Seventh Cross characters sometimes work in the other lessons that I've had on the season is like it's very possible to exceed too early without having your engine set up or exceed when it's not the right time because you don't have the ammunition, you'll burn yourself out. Is that a consideration for the Dragon Slayer, or is it more just like if you want to play that line, you get the things that will decrease the gauge cost enough that it's reasonable to flip, and then you flip, and now you're just going to do this line instead.
More that one. It's a pretty big mode shift because you're losing the like pretty good value of your frontside ability for pretty good value of just a completely different ability.
Right?
And
They're just different characters.
yeah, Iaquis's transforms don't actually really help either side. They're mostly just general economic TFs.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not giving up value by playing frontside Iaquis with transforms. They'll help me just as much. Uh, Likewise, if I somehow manage to, I'm up against I'm in the Iaquis mirror, and he plays that boost that we'll get to, I'm sure, where we just all get gauge forever, and I exceed immediately. I don't have any of my transforms. I'm not like shooting myself in the foot by doing that.
Well, you are because you don't have any cards in hand because you spent them all on Martial Challenge, but
Oh,
that's a
true,
different consideration.
true. I'm playing a rules variant where I start with 5 gauge, um, and I exceed immediately with no transforms. This is still a functional character with no transforms.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would dare say even probably a good one. I don't
okay,
personally value it because I'm a gorilla brain, and also the one time I tried it, I ended up getting milled in what a game that would have otherwise been a perfect. So
okay, sure. And that kind of stuff sticks with you. I remember on previous lessons where there were considerations like this. Giovanna is a good example. You taught me Giovanna a while ago now, and you had a similar thought about exceed mode Giovanna versus frontside Giovanna. Um, and I think what you said at the time was like this isn't a like value proposition, it's like a playstyle proposition where like the thing that you liked to do with Giovanna was stay on front side. Similar idea where like there's going to be people out there for whom the Dragon Slayer is what they want to do, and that's like a viable, good playstyle? Or do you actually just think that Iaquis on front side is just stronger and better?
Um, Glances at triggers. I think both are pretty good.
Okay. I mean, if if the trigger that I'm giving up, if looking through this briefly, I see that I have a +4 power on one of these triggers. I see that I have a +1. I see that I have a +2. Like, I definitely have some ways to staple bonus power onto things. Um, but so do I as frontside Equus. And I can just do that for free without having to worry about spending the turn to flip or spending any gauge or building to anything.
Yeah,
Um,
the actual considerations are like the +4 power is actually a lot better when it's not on an ultra because it certainly is much easier to get that text to actually work when it's not on an ultra.
right,
And this is a before advance 3.
right, sure. Um, So, and you mentioned the one time you tried Dragon Slayer, you got milled out. Clearly, not a good memory. I won't make you revisit it too much. Um, are you ever like in a situation where you're like, this is actually like workable for the Dragon Slayer? I might go for it if it wasn't for that horrible memory. Um, in other words, can you give any advice about when flipping might be a valuable thing for Equus to do?
Um, if you read the character and you're like, I don't want the basic mode and I want the exceed mode, then the answer is exceed ASAP. Otherwise, the one of the other humorous problems that Iaquis has is that he kills the opponent too fast.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. So you might not be able to experience everything he can do in one game because the game won't last long enough. Okay. So inevitably, um, I will talk to somebody for the written guide at some point who is a Dragon Slayer player. Maybe we can get a little bit more into detail on them or from them rather. For the purposes of this lesson, we're going to mostly be talking about Iaquis, the cool samurai man, not the mean samurai man.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I will talk about the value of the triggers within the context of Dragon Slayer because that's a pretty easy thing to evaluate.
Sure.
And for the most part, the resource management decisions you would be making going for the Dragon Slayer aren't that different. It's just how you're playing assaults mostly.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So for this Equus, the TLDR, use his ability more often than not, more often than you think you should. +2 power is great. Um, doing something face up with +2 power is not the end of the world. You will learn as you play when it was a bad idea to have done it, and then you just won't do it in that situation.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay, makes sense to me. Where to next? Shall we just do the kit breakdown?
Yeah, and let's start with Dragon's Tongue, the fastest of them.
Okay, and these are
So this is a
all
second copy of Assault.
These are all named after different dragon parts, which will make it difficult for me to remember which card is which. So this is my fast assault like.
Yeah. So I already talked about how Assault is something that we value because it's an on-curve attack. This is worse than Assault. Under most circumstances, this is worse than Assault because drawing a card is worse than gaining advantage. This also doesn't beat Spike if you play it on defense, although if you play it EX on defense, then it does.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's when you initiate a strike. Okay, so a lot of these cards I can't just automatically all the time staple +2 power to them. Sometimes it's going to be my opponent's turn.
yes, and that is exactly the benefit of the Dragon Slayer is their ability is active all the time,
Got
and it
it.
gives you a lot of defensive security.
Okay. So if you are the kind of player who looks at initiating a strike face up and kind of balks at you having a part-time character ability, the Dragon Slayer might be for you in that case. Cool. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Dragon's Tongue. It's assault. It doesn't move you in, and yet, um, it's still an on curve range 3 button.
Yep, it is a attack that is reasonable to throw out because it's assault, even if it's worse assault.
Right.
Um, I will loop around to talk about the boosts, but I will talk about the TFs as we get to the attacks. So we will talk about Scorn later.
Okay, makes sense. Um, so uh, previously on other lessons, like when we were talking about Soul Bad Guy back in the day, um, Gunflame Slash, right? Effectively similar cards or almost the same cards. Him having multiple pieces of redundancy really helped his mix-ups, right? That was like a really important part of his character's identity that he could use up a button or its boost and still have something to keep that part of the mix-up alive. Iaquis is not throwing mix-ups, right? He's throwing questions the opponent has to answer. Um, does he get any particular benefit out of having this kind of redundancy, or is it really just like assault in particular is a good shape? You want to have that shape.
Closer to the latter,
Okay.
because as you have already guessed correctly, Iaquis is less about throwing mix-ups and more about just throwing things that hit the opponent so hard that if they don't answer them, they take like 1/4 of their life bar.
Right. And you don't have to do that too many times to win a game of Exceed. Okay.
All right,
So,
um,
yep, where to next?
Dragon's Flight. This is an attack that Sagat does not have an equivalent to, tragically. Which Dragon's Tongue, of course, is kind of similar to Low Step Kick, although Low Step Kick is much worse in exchange for having crit ignore guard.
Right.
But both are just like utility shapes that do a thing that the character kind of appreciates. The thing that the character kind of appreciates is different between them, but.
Right.
Anyways, Dragon's Flight, very silly attack. This is dive, but if you face up it hits for 7, and also it's 2 to 5 dive with 5 guard. And I know that it's not always dive. It's only dive if you don't advance past the opponent. But also, it's dive.
Yeah, like okay, so on curve at 4, hits at 5, has some guard that is quite a lot of guard actually. That is like a 4 speed 5 guard attack outside of like 10 Hadoken. At range, there's actually not a lot that can really meaningfully stop this.
Yep, it's mostly get into a position where it doesn't hit you, which is like cross out when he
Right.
uses it as an opener,
Right.
or just accept that you're going to trade and use focus.
Okay. So on the not to constantly be calling back to the Sagat lesson, but on the Sagat lesson, um, the reason that you don't cross out against a face up Tiger Shot, for example, is that Sagat has this, right? Where
Yeah.
congratulations, you've answered the immediate threat, and by answering the immediate threat, you've lost the game or at least taken half of your life getting back in.
Yep.
Um, does Iaquis have that kind of ranged threat where answering this card in the first place just I guess this also moves you in. You don't lose that much positioning. It's not like you
Yeah.
set range 6.
This moving in actually is basically the reason why it's okay to cross out against it, because Iaquis totally does have his own low tiger shot, and it does totally kill the fuck out of the opponent
Okay.
if they lose to it.
Okay. Okay. So my opponent will cross out knowing that I will maintain positioning because they would actually prefer me not to they would actually prefer me to maintain positioning than have to eat Dragon Spine.
Yeah, it's probably easier to answer Iaquis's cards at range 3, which is where like Dragon's Flight would set up,
Right.
with your back to the corner, which means that they can also just throw the second Dragon's Flight at you, and it's much harder to answer now,
Sure.
than it is to answer Dragon Spine, because Dragon Spine is really really silly.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I will use this on curve at range 4. It becomes quite a bit less useful in like the mid speed dive range. Um, it's still I mean, in that case, the guard is useful, but if they assault at me, I'm going to whiff anyway. Um, so at range 3, this seems like a little bit less of a appealing card.
It can be, although actually, funny enough, the TF on it addresses some of those concerns, because the TF is effectively, it turns all of your attacks into block, in terms of they have the block after you may add this to gauge.
Right.
Um, so sure you whiffed, but they consumed an answer to Dragon's Flight, and you still get the gauge. That's
Right.
the
Okay.
value proposition of this TF, is that it makes Iaquis's Guardy shapes, which he has a number of, much safer to just throw out because the opponent has to actually straight up stun them for him to
Right.
get literally no value out of them.
Right. Like like it's actually kind of similar to Spike in this regard, where like Spike loses combat all the time without being stunned, right? Like it just whiffs on things.
Yep.
Um, and that sucks because then you don't get it doesn't get to go to Gauge. Uh, Dragon Force, in addition to being a very funny band, just gives me the ability to say with anything like a Spike or with Spike's defensive profile or better, if I don't hit, that's fine. I'm gonna get some amount of what I would have gotten out of hitting anyway. I just don't do damage.
Yep.
Okay. Is this like a priority transform? It occurs to me actually that we've never talked about a season 2 character together before, I don't think.
That is
Um,
correct.
Obviously for people who have not seen other lessons on Seventh Cross characters, these are transforms. They are basically permanent boosts that you can get into play by either hitting with an attack or EX transforming them, having both copies in your hand and discarding one to transform the other, hard transforming it, I guess. Um, a lot of Seventh Cross characters have, you know, crucial engine pieces that they need to get and have to like play very carefully to secure them. I'm thinking about like Remelis's range transform, for example. Um, is this something that Iaquis is, and especially with somebody who throws things face up, is this something that Iaquis can live without if he doesn't get it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
None of Iaquis's TFs are required. Even if you land the attack, Iaquis has pretty reasonable uses for gauge, which we will get into. And also, like having resources to just play the game is not bad either. But
sure,
because more than a lot of Seventh Cross characters, he actually does lean mostly on Exceed fundamentals and just playing good Exceed.
right, okay. I guess it's nice actually that the character who throws things face up doesn't lose out as much as another Seventh Cross character would by missing out on their transforms.
Yeah,
Um,
and what these TFs do, the one on Dragon Spine as well is like this, is these mitigate risk. These both are basically you can face up more aggressively because if the opponent actually answers it, you're fine.
okay, sure, yeah, you get gauge anyway, so who cares? As long as you weren't stunned before you got your after effect. Um, do you do you go for this transform often, or you mentioned that sometimes you'll just let Dragonflight go to gauge?
Um, I'm gonna be real with you. I haven't played Iaquis in a minute. When I played Iaquis like way back when a lot, I would pretty consistently TF the TFs. I think nowadays I probably would play a little bit differently. I probably would gauge them.
Okay,
Because I would rather just sequence into killing the opponent
sure,
faster.
sure. I feel like just looking at what this transform gets you, it kind of becomes a question of like, how bad do you need to gauge now, and how often are you planning on missing? Because
Yeah, basically.
if you make use of this transform one time, um, you have offset the cost of putting it in gauge in the first place, as long as you didn't need that gauge instantaneously to do something. So maybe we can think about it that way. Um, but it also sounds like, I mean, the fact that you were able to play Iaquis with his transforms fairly aggressively in the past and find some success means that it's at least not a horrible call to just default to having them transform.
Yeah, they do something, and the thing they do is mitigate the risk that is associated with setting attacks face up.
Okay.
Because like effectively the two of the three TFs just give you refunds.
Okay. Sure, that makes sense. Um, for the Dragon Slayer, who's not setting things face up, you obviously don't get the ability to set them up face up more aggressively. But if you whiff with that with him, cool. Now you still need a force bank. Um, oh no, I'm sorry. You may discard a card from your hand. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Um, he just needs gauge to play Exceed because Exceed characters need gauge to function.
Yep.
Oh,
And you also are much less likely to whiff as the Dragon Slayer because you're the Dragon Slayer.
mm. You can probably make a shape that just kind of works.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, makes sense to me. Um, where to next? Should we just go down the line?
Yep. Uh, so everyone remembers the infamous Tiger Shot from Sagat. Well, here's its older, much less successful brother, Dragon's Fire. This is one of the fireballs of all time.
May add a
That's about
random
my review
card
of it.
from your hand to your gauge. So this is before we templated the current way to loop a fireball, right? Um, like a Hadoken
Oh
or a low
yeah,
Tiger Shot.
Universal Errata. This hit effect is an after if you hit effect.
Ah, okay, sure. So it doesn't deprive me of the card that I'm using to deal damage to my opponent.
Yeah, it deals damage.
Okay,
That is a universal errata that applies to every card and boost that has this kind of text, except for the one on Phonon.
right. Okay. And audience, if you don't know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. This card works the way that you intuitively think it would.
Yep.
Okay. Um, that said, so adding a random card from your hand to your gauge actually doesn't sound amazing to me.
It's bad.
Yeah,
It's really bad.
it seems like something that hey, I kind of wanted to use that card. I was holding that assault for the EX that I was looking for or something. Like that doesn't sound great. The upside of having another copy of Dragon's Fire in my hand in the first place feels pretty medium at best looking at its stat profile. I guess it's a 5 power fireball probably.
On your turn.
Um yeah. Should I ever make use of this hit effect?
There are times where it is correct to loop it. They are very rare.
Okay. So my opponent is completely out of movement options to dodge it, and they don't have any plans to come into melee anytime soon, I guess.
Or you want to force them into melee, where you can beat them up with your melee attacks,
Okay.
which would be like mostly normals, and then also like the next card we're going to talk about.
Okay. It's a forcing play. Hopefully I don't lose any of my melee attacks or normals by using this hit effect.
Yeah,
Okay. If
I
I'm
think you're
not
seeing the problem with this attack.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm not using the hit effect, it's a 2 to 5/5/4 on my turn, which is like adequate. It's not the greatest fireball I've ever seen, but it'll do a job. Um, is it just a button that works sometimes and it's not like an all-star card and I don't really care about it?
Yeah, this card within the context of Iaquis' kit is actually much closer to the Sagat low step kick. Oops, I ran out of power budget card than
Okay.
low step kick is
Okay.
with
So
its
despite
equivalent.
the shape looks like one of Sagat's most important game pieces, the effect is more like the one that doesn't have Tiger written on it.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, I got you. Um, uh, you said that we were going to go back to Martial Challenge, or we're going to loop around to the boosts later on. I do know slightly what this boost does. We don't have to talk about it now. But is this card often just force then?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. Um, looking forward to hearing about the boost later on, but I know it by reputation a little bit. This is a card that I don't really care to keep most of the time.
Yep.
Makes sense. Um, how about Dragon's Tail?
All right, this card's fucking epic. So it's a little bit different of a shape, but this is kind of similar to your Tiger Knee on Sagat, where it's your actually you thought I was a zoner. Nah, I'm a fucking bruiser melee tool.
Okay.
So Tiger Knee, lots of cool properties. It's a sweep like with advantage. This is a kick that has 6 power before +2 power, 4 power printed. So six
Yep.
printed power effectively,
Yep.
which 6 printed power is pretty mighty, but doesn't actually necessarily beat anything. So it's not a very effective kick at range 1. At 2, it beats focus in a janky way because of the after retreat. But if you're a bad enough baller to play it face up, then it's an 8 power kick. That's some spinning back knuckle shit.
Yeah.
That stuns basically all slows.
Okay. I think I see the vision here. You cannot mix people up with that, obviously, but they're not stunning it. Probably. I'm sure they have answers to it. They have dive or cross or something to deal with it, or at least trade with it. But they probably can't do that sort of thing forever. And I
Yep,
don't need to hit with for 8 power very many times.
that is very true.
Okay.
And then because of the after retreat one, if they answer it with grasp or dive or cross, you are setting up like range 5, like range 4 or range 5. So anyways, on to the next card, Dragon Spine.
Why?
Here's why they
Why?
don't want to do that.
Yeah. Why would you possibly not want to set distance on Iaquis?
Anyways, I just wanted to point that out. We already like referenced that this character has effectively low tiger shot multiple
Right.
times, but yeah, this is why this is actually like shockingly safe to just throw out, because if it works, the opponent dies. If it doesn't work, the opponent probably dies or is
Probably dies
forced
later.
into needing to like move back in and spend resources. And like you're a like zonery dude that also is really good in melee because of your ability. So like they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place as far as Dragon's Tail goes. It's really nasty.
Okay. Okay. I get you. So uh my zoner profile, looking I know that I have got another 6 range in my ultras, but just looking at these for the moment, like I have, similar to Sagat, one kind of utility ranged card and one absolute murderer of a ranged card.
Yeah,
Here's
you can
mine.
actually with Iaquis think of it as having 2 absolute murderers. This is
Okay,
also a ranged reward. It's just one that moves you back in.
sure. So I've got the jump in and I've got the big punishing fireball. And as a trade off, I don't really have like my safe, easy to use fireball. It's here, but it's not great. It's just something that I'll do if I don't want to go back in. Oh, we found a use case for it actually. If I don't want to jump back in with Dragon's Flight, and I've already used Dragon Spine and they're refusing to come back in on me, or I don't have Dragon Spine, here's something that I can throw out at range freely.
You found it. And also,
Okay.
yeah, if you have it, like it's reasonably safe. You can just throw it.
Right. Okay. Okay. Um as I'm talking about or as we're talking about these, it occurs to me that like another way to think about this, because I'm looking for ways when I would use my ability, because it is I'm still kind of gun shy about the idea of setting cards face up. It actually seems like it is harder to find situations where I wouldn't throw these face up
Now you're
than
seeing
when
the
I
vision.
would. Okay, because this card's bad when it's face up, but it's worse when it's face down. Um, this card doesn't beat anything most of the time when it's face down. If I am looking for paying out on a good position, I would rather hit for 7 than 5. And if I'm trying to confirm this, they probably can't do anything about it anyway. Um, okay. So with these cards, the chase for the character ability kind of makes itself.
Yep, I would
Okay.
agree.
Makes sense. Um, and with these two, I guess with these three in particular, these are my big power cards. All of them are answerable. All of them will um, probably whiff against an opponent who is prepared for them. But whiffing with one sets up the others. If they ever are lax in their resources, they're just going to die. Um, and as I keep saying, I don't have to hit for 8 that often to just kill the opponent.
Yep.
Okay, seems fairly straightforward. It's interesting to me that you say that he plays a lot of Exceed, because I mean, in some ways, Exceed is a game about mix-ups, and he's not really doing that. But I guess in another way, Exceed is a game about resource management, and he's definitely doing that.
Yeah, he's a very resource management-y kind of character. And also he's like reasonably fine with trading because he just has better numbers than the opponent usually.
He's got a fair amount of guard. He's got power for days, especially when he's initiating. If we just race our life totals to the bottom, I'm probably going to win by some amount.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth noting that that also was a comparative statement. I'm talking about within the context of season 2.
Oh,
He is an Exceed player.
I see. Okay, he's amongst his peers who play Exceed when they have to, when they're forced to at gunpoint. This guy's actually more like Exceed's fun. I'll play Exceed. And I don't really have anything better to do because my transforms just allow me to play Exceed better instead of opening up a mini game so that I don't have to play.
Yeah, speaking of mini games, anyways, single-minded.
I'm a professional segwayer, Blue.
Here is the one little Iaquis mini game he has, and I am not a big fan of it. If you speed tie the opponent, you have stun immunity and +2 power. Um, Remember what we were saying about how the character like cares more about their turn and also like the inherent awkwardness of like, oh, I don't have an ability on the opponent's turn, and also
Right,
like all that jazz. Well, like, what if the opponent like just 8-6 for making the mistake of ever playing assault into you,
right. Sure. Okay.
or like just lost 8-6 and also lost advantage for the mistake of ever doing it?
So, all right. I have several questions here. Number one is you don't like this because of what it does to the character from like a design perspective because it seems quite strong.
Um, it is strong. It's also very spiky.
Okay. Um.
Because the opponent can play around it for the most part. It actually compacts mix-ups in a way that is extremely uninteresting. But
Mm,
we'll get to that later.
okay.
Um, but like, if the opponent ever is in a situation where they need to wild swing and they just happen to wild swing into something that speed ties Iaquis like on his turn, they get like double owned. It's really stupid.
Oh, right, because you can double up on this. This could be +4 power.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is always active. It's not just active on the opponent's turn. It just means that the character's defensive profile is actually much better with single-minded because you can do stuff like anyways, let's talk about how it compacts mix-ups.
Yeah.
So at range 3, you just play Assault because Assault beats everything now.
Yeah. Because oh god, you're right. All right. So here's the things it already beats. Here's the extra thing it beats now.
Yeah, like, theoretically, you can also play Dive. Dive doesn't beat everything in the way that Assault does, and obviously Assault, like, trades with slows, but, like, the opponent sure did initiate with things that lose to mid speeds. Anyways, now you just never need to interact with the opponent's mix-ups. You play one of these 2 cards, and it probably wins.
Got it. Okay. Um. As a as a defensive button, some of these are slightly awkward, right? If they dive me, for example, I don't have the ability to hit them back even though I'm stun immune.
That is the
Um,
awkwardness with defending with Dive, yeah. But
okay.
it does set up range 3, which is a range that you probably like a little bit more than.
Okay. So stun immunity could be its own reward, especially actually also this also means that with these two transforms together, I will always get my after if I speed tie the opponent, even on defense.
Yep.
So okay, it's a gauge generation tool if I want it to be. Um, Among the cards in my kit, I don't have every speed represented. Obviously, among the normals, I do. Um, but you could speed tie with a sweep. You could speed tie with a spike, with a dive, um, another dive,
Dive again.
and
Assault,
assault.
which, again, one of the ones that's, like, relevant because you can do anti-mix-up stuff. Although,
Right.
again, Dragon's Tongue doesn't actually beat everything Assault does, so it's a little
Right.
bit awkward.
Okay. Um, so of these cards, the the one honestly the one like you said the one that really benefits is actual for real assault.
Yep.
Um, the other cards like I mean, I'm already trading with sweep because sweep doesn't do enough damage to stun this. It just lets me trade up. God, this has 6 guard, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
That's wild. Projectiles shouldn't have that much guard. Um, this one has like you know
This
spike.
one's hilarious in the single-minded trade instance because it's like, you trade up because you hit for 8, but it only works at range 2.
Right.
It's extremely janky.
Okay. So in like I will be able to find some things given what my I'll look at my character's kit and see that they have a lot of really threatening speed 5 things and I could probably go to town with that. In general though, having a much better defensive profile even if it involves janky mix-ups is a useful thing for a character to have. It just sounds like it's kind of a boring thing for a character to have because it like you said it flattens the mix-up range.
It does that, and then also, like, I would advise never actually planning on getting the value of single-minded because it's a slot machine, which is the other annoying thing is it's a slot machine where if you actually get the 777, the opponent dies really hard.
Right. Okay. So they have to play around it. I don't necessarily have to play for it. And in fact, I can't really play for it unless we're on like some real RPS Yomi layer stuff. And that is inherently an inconsistent game plan to be shooting for.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it comes my way, I take it and I will win a game off of the value I'm generating from it. I'll probably feel a little bit bad while I do it. Um,
Depends on how you feel about winning.
sure, we're talking about playing to win on the show. We have, and like that is a legitimate, disclaimer that we make that you should play Exceed for fun. Uh, if you, and also like you mentioned that Sagat Iaquis has legitimate uses for gauge. If you don't want to win this way, you can probably win this way and not feel too bad about it.
Yep.
Okay. Um, does the Dragon Slayer get any additional or different utility out of single minded, or is it more of the same?
Thinking.
I mean, I
I
guess
don't
at this
think
point
he
we're
gets.
kind of out of your wheelhouse because you don't play Dragon Slayer and you don't like this transform.
Well, I don't like the transform from a design perspective.
Right. Right.
I think Equus's speed spread mostly betrays it actually being able to do something more, regardless of what his ability shape is.
Okay. That makes sense to me. All right, and then we have one more transform over here on Dragon Spine, which is Growing Hatred. Man, this is a mean man.
Yeah,
Um,
to a degree.
tell me a little bit about. He's at least a hateful man when he has this transform in play. At the end of each strike, if your attack did not hit the opponent, you may draw a card. All right, so similar, like you said,
Yeah.
similar kind of upside to Dragon Force.
This is a cleanup effect. Like within modern templating, this is a cleanup effect. It technically happens at a different timing, but this is a cleanup effect. Cleanup if you do not hit the opponent, draw a card.
Right,
This does not require you to activate your attack. If you get stunned, it's fine. You definitely didn't hit the opponent. This also
right.
means that block has cleanup, draw a card, like period.
Okay, sure, that's true.
Um, Similar to what I said about Dragon Force, this mitigates risk. It makes it so you can just throw things out, and if the opponent does successfully answer them, now you draw a card and you get gauge,
Yep,
probably, or at worst you draw a card.
which is pretty
Um,
solid.
Similar to Dragon's Flight, you value gauge reasonably, even if Equus isn't the most expensive character in the world. You also value these attack shapes, even if the opponent isn't necessarily going to live through a full reshuffle, making it so that you only have one instance of this attack shape and this attack shape, if it ever actually comes to that, can make things more awkward because these are your premium payouts.
Right. Okay. So I was actually you kind of anticipated my question that uh, the constant cost of transforming a useful card on a seventh cross character is that you don't have it on the reshuffle. My assumption was that because I was dealing so much damage, they weren't going to live that long anyway. So why would I care? But you're saying that
It is
actually
reasonable.
no, it sometimes it will matter, and I would like to have this card or these cards.
Yeah,
Okay. So it is, and actually probably this one too. This one also hits for 8. So
very
is
true.
it just a useful heuristic then to say like the longer I'm expecting the game to go, well, that even that okay, man, Blue, I'm gonna have to make interesting decisions, aren't I?
Yep.
I hate that in Exceed. Um, if the game's gonna go really long, I might need these cards. But also, if the game's going to go really long, I might have more opportunity to make use of these transforms. So, it kind of resists the heuristic line that I'm looking for here. They are both you. I could put it in gauge or I could transform it. It is difficult to tell what is the right decision.
Yep. And
Ah,
and
man.
my answer to that question is transform it if you want it.
Okay, makes sense. Try both, right? I mean, play more than one game of Iaquis.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably.
yeah, see what kind of Iaquis player you are. I feel like that is a advice that probably should be said more often on this show. Because a lot of exceed balance considerations or exceed character power considerations can kind of double as playstyle considerations in a lot of ways. Um, all right, so that's our looks like utility button, janky utility button, murder card, murder card, murder card.
Yeah, pretty much.
Makes sense. Okay. Where to next? Shall we talk boosts? Shall we talk ultras?
I should probably talk about the Ultra Boost at the same time as the Ultras, so let's just quickly cover Martial Challenge and Dragon Scorn.
Okay.
Similar to Dragon's Fire, the attack, Martial Challenge is one of the boosts of all time.
I
Uh,
I love how flavorful it is. I think it's an incredibly funny boost.
yep.
It
Now, like to give a bit of context, I say Iaquis has reasonable uses for Gauge. These are reasonable uses for Gauge, but they're not expensive uses for Gauge.
hmm. He doesn't need 6.
Yep. So like if you're doing like a how much do I value Gauge measuring contest, Iaquis values Gauge less than most Street Fighter characters, definitely less than most Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear characters, but like more than like a Season 6 character.
Sure. Okay. And don't give your Red Horizon character their Big Dumb Ultra or their Exceed mode for free. Don't give Ryu Matsushora Yuken for free. If you're up against a Seventh Cross character or a Guilty Gear, or I'm sorry, or an Under Night character, um, or maybe a Shovel Knight character, some of them have pretty messed up ultras. Um, you might be a little bit more willing to give them Gauge, but just in general, like Gauge can be used to take game actions and kill you.
Yep, and also it's worth noting that a lot of Seventh Cross characters actually have bombs that kill you dead as well, so I'm not sure that giving them Gauge is very safe either.
Yeah, I'm not sure that giving anybody Gauge is safe. Like the
Yeah, it's a very complex equation of do you actually need Gauge so badly that you're fine with giving the opponent roughly an equivalent amount of Gauge?
right. Um, is there I mean, even this is not a compelling or exciting use for the card, but if they're completely out of resources, uh, you can at
This is a
least
1 force key
probably,
charge. You can do
yeah,
that.
you can at least probably guarantee that you will get more Gauge than the opponent, or maybe you'll only get 1 Gauge, and that's fine, I guess. Nothing that I've heard you say about this card has changed the vibe that I got earlier. That this is probably something that I'm pretty willing to spend as force most of the time.
Yeah, that's probably
Okay,
true.
makes sense.
Um, the attack shape does a thing. The boost technically does a thing, but it's not the most important. It's also not the most exciting card.
Right. Do you ever find it useful to boost Martial Challenge, or do you think it's like 100% a meme?
98% meme.
Okay, that works. There might be, scratch it off of your Exceed Bingo card or your Exceed Scavenger Hunt card. You might someday find a use for Martial Challenge, but don't expect to.
I've almost certainly found situations where it was where I needed Gauge and also didn't need like cards in my hand bad enough where it was correct to boost it, but those situations are rare.
Yep. Okay, makes perfect sense. How about Dragon Scorn?
All right, so this is a funny one because this is actually like very reminiscent to a boost that Sagat has, Quick Backdash. But whereas Quick Backdash on Sagat can set up range 3 where he can play Tiger Destruction and murder the fuck out of you, you are consuming one of your range 3 cards to set up range 3,
Right.
and then you don't actually have Tiger Destruction. You have these Ultras instead. So
Neither of which are your range 3 payout card anyway.
this is a strong boost with no home, which is a
Okay.
really tragic thing to be.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
Now there
so
are some cool things you can do with it. Like let's say you had a hand that was EX Assault and Grasp, and then a copy of Dragon's Tongue,
okay.
or Dragon's Heart if you want to replace the Grasp with something more epic. You could do Assault, Scorn, Assault, Payout.
Mm. You just kind of ping back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are situations where it does something because it is ultimately basically a cancelable boost that sets the opponent from range 1 to range 3. And it's like there's a lot of situations where that does a thing, even if it
Sure.
doesn't do as much within the context of specifically Iaquis's kit because of how it's shaped.
Yeah, and I mean, also action compression in older Exceed was very hard to come by anyway. Just having a little bit of kind of quantum positioning could be useful. I got an EX dive in my hand that I can't use at range 1. All right, well now I'll just
Another
probably
great
win
play.
probably win combat for free.
That's basically tire destruction if you have it.
Yeah, if you face up it, yeah, that's true. Okay. Oh, and you can face up an EX attack, right? There's no, and you can
Yeah,
face
of
up a
course.
wild swing. There's no reason that you can't.
Yeah, this is I guess to pull out the character that can't do that, our good friend Hyde Keto from season 6,
Oh yeah,
Under Night in Birth. So he says strike with a card face up.
right.
This
This
says
is when
set
you.
your attack face up.
Yep. Okay.
Your attack is the attack that you set. You can set a wild swing face up. You can set an EX attack face up. It's all good in the hood.
Makes sense to me.
Anyways, his characters are really bad wild swingers. You could probably tell.
Right. Yeah. A lot of non-overlapping ranges in general. A lot of big
And like
hitboxes, but
technically, it's wild swing at range 2 and most of your stuff hits, but also like lol.
quite a bit of it is underwhelming. Quite a bit of it. If you're wild swinging with your stuff face up, you probably do want to. I'm sorry, you probably do want to do it face up if you're wild swinging with your stuff. A lot of it's going to be answerable.
Yep.
Okay, makes sense. So with these two as my, I know that I got two more boosts in a second here, and we'll get to them, but it is generally true of Seventh Cross characters that like the more transforms I have, the more limited my ability to play neutral is. Right.
Yep.
Um, a lot of Galdred, Turtlehouse characters who are, or even Sejun to an extent, even like characters who have a lot of transforms are hamstrung in neutral in some ways. I have big hitboxes. I have lots of ways to move back and forth between threatening ranges. Am I still kind of gonna be stuck sometimes because I just don't have uh, the ability to play neutral with
To a
boosts like
degree.
this?
Iaquis does have one gun that helps him a lot as far as neutral play goes,
Looks
which we
over
will get
at
to
Swift
we'll get to
Destruction.
shortly. The gun helps a lot because you can just say, "All right, buddy,
Yeah,
stop it.
I'm winning neutral now.
I'm winning neutral, and also if you don't respond to this, I also will have +2 power."
Yeah, true. Um, maybe on a spike, right? And
Similarly, the Dragon Slayer has better neutral because like these triggers are effectively boosts that you play at the timing of when you
at
set your
at
attack,
at striking speed, right?
which like you don't have a ton that help, but you do have this one, which is more than most trigger mixers can actually claim.
Yeah. Okay. And
And you
also, I
also
mean,
have like literally fierce.
yeah, you can
Also can
you.
loop whatever you want, which is really funny. But
Oh,
you know,
I didn't even think of that. That's is very funny. Okay, cool. So limited neutral, ignoring the boost that we will talk about in a little bit. Uh, it kind of gives me grappler vibes. A character with big high damage swings and limited neutral. Clearly, I am not a range one grappler. At least I'm trying to make and maintain range to throw big payouts. But it it seems like there's a similar paradigm of like drain my opponent of answers to the scary things I have because they will be answerable, and then throw them when they're not answerable anymore.
yep. And in that
Okay.
regard, it's very similar to Sagat.
Sure.
Slightly
Yeah.
different vibe for a very similar play style.
Okay. That makes sense. Cool. Okay. Uh, shall we talk ultras then?
Yeah, yeah. Dragon's Descent is a really funny card. Anyways, I'm gonna actually talk about the other one first because it's more relevant.
Sure.
Um, I just sorted these by speed, but then I was like, actually, we should talk about this one first. So here's the bomb. The for some reason is the seventh cross character has an undercosted ultra that hits for 1,000,000 damage bomb that like
Yeah.
half of them have. This is 176 on defense with hit push 3, which means it double beats sweep and doesn't beat focus.
Right.
And a 196 if you initiate with it face up.
That's like
Similar to
face up Dragon's Heart is like almost 2 gauge Tager driver. Like a or a Tager Buster rather.
Yeah, Genesect Emerald Tiger Buster.
Yeah, it's a 196 instead of a 110-6 when it's face up, but for 2 less gauge.
Yep. And similar to your Genesect Emerald Taker Buster or Authorized, well, not Authorized Force, although I guess technically Authorized Force if you actually wanted to play it. Or Shinryuken, or what the heck is it Giovanna ult called?
Ventania?
Yeah, Ventania. Similar to all those ultras, if you want to play this, you hold it for the EX. The one piece of awkwardness, of course, with this one compared to all those is that it actually has a good boost on it. It has your gun.
Yeah, it has Swift Destruction.
So you might just need to accept that you might trade with EX Focus and also just straight up lose to Grasp. But also, it's a 2 gauge Ultra that hits for 9. The risk reward on just throwing it out is ludicrously in your favor.
Right. Sure. And this also is not difficult to get enough gauge to do, especially if I don't super value my transforms. Um, and range 1 is like a notable gap in all of the scary things I can do. It's the most answerable place for a lot of these cards. Um,
Yep.
Now it isn't anymore as soon as I get to 2 gauge.
Yep.
All right. Seems
Yeah, it's
pretty
uh,
straightforward.
yeah, and also if they actually do manage to get hit by the hit push 3, well, congratulations, you just set up the
Y-
range where you can
y-
like throw this shit out.
you set up all of your other stuff, sure, especially on defense. Um, and like, yeah, a 196 is cool. Uh, but I'm not gonna like say no to a 176 on defense. Like that's still ridiculous.
Yeah, and if you have the read that the opponent is playing something that loses to it, which is, most cards,
Many things.
then it is a very reasonable defensive play. Oh, also, I forgot to mention with Dragon Spine because we kind of just glossed over it. This is after gain advantage.
Oh yeah,
After gain advantage. This attack is actually very deceptively safe to throw face up because if they do answer it with a dive, you have advantage at range one. At
yeah,
range one.
yeah.
At
At
range
range
one.
one, at range one, blue.
And then
Okay,
also, I could ping like grasp or sweep for other like bombs you can just throw at the opponent.
right. Yep. Okay, makes sense. Uh, the limiting factor of playing this ultra seems like that it has Swift Destruction on it.
Yep.
Um, you folks who are more used to newer Exceed, where action compression was more common and numbers were smaller, your eyes are not deceiving you. This is +4 speed. Um,
Yep.
they made numbers bigger back then. Uh,
They certainly did.
looks a lot like this one. Also, another famous character who plays exactly like these two, Natali, has Swift Destruction. So it's
Okay,
a
okay, okay. Hear me out. She doesn't
yeah,
play like Iaquis or Sagat, but she is designed to feel to evoke similar feelings as them because she is part of the boss design archetype of like M Bison and like later on like Ramlethal and stuff.
sure,
The characters that have infinite resources and interact with the resource engine of Exceed in ways that are perpendicular to a normal character.
yeah,
Obviously, Iaquis doesn't do that. Well, he sort of does. He has boss character TFs. Um, but he and Sagat are meant to feel like not the big boss, the M Bison, but they're the guy just under him. Because that's literally what Sagat is in SF2. And in
sure, yeah.
SF1, he is literally the final
He's the
boss.
final boss, definitely. Okay, yeah, no, I was making a funny joke about Swift Destruction, but that's actually a pretty solid design through line. Um, cool. Shout out to Natali. She's not the same as these characters.
Yep, she
Um,
certainly isn't.
so relative to what Swift Destruction does to my game plan of someone who wants to hit really hard and confirm big power numbers, this seems relevant to my interests, Blue.
Yeah, yeah. I remember how we were talking about how Dragon's Tail, if it's answered, sets up a position that the opponent doesn't like. Well, what if instead it just was a DP that hit for 8
Yeah,
and had 5 guard for some reason,
yeah.
just in
In
case?
Yeah, in case they have the EX or something like that. Um, all right, so yeah, that's ridiculous, right? That's a very silly amount of speed to have on a character with this much power. Um, it's tech bait, I assume. My opponent will be saving their
Oh, naturally.
dives,
Yep.
uh, which also means that this card gets better because who's gonna dive in on me?
Yeah. And similarly, you can do the same kind of classic technique that Sagat or Ryu or Ken does when you have an Ultra Boost that is so ludicrously threatening that the opponent has to tech it or they die, which is
Right.
just reading dive.
Yeah, sure. They're going to be holding it. Um, it also means that as much as they would like to, they probably can't afford to tech your lights. Um, all of this also means like they're going to be. They know I have it. They know that it's a scary thing that I can do. It's probably not going to go off every time I play it. Um, it's probably going to be parried out of my hand occasionally. I will have to live without this card, it sounds like, because it is so obviously threatening.
Yep.
Okay. If they fail to get rid of it, I can use it to win the game.
Yep.
Makes sense. Cool.
Both halves of it are pretty good at winning the game as well.
Yep.
So
Yep. Um, in your kind of Iaquis playstyle, it seems like Swift Destruction doesn't really require much of a sales pitch, and Dragon's Heart is like what you will do if the situation allows for it. Is that
yep,
okay?
that's about right.
Okay.
And
So
also to talk about this attack within the context of Dragon Slayer, it's a 6 speed attack, high printed speed. Um, we have a dive trigger in our kit, and it's a dive trigger that gives us +2 power. So if we manage to play this at range 4, it is a 196 that is,
from
all
from range 4, you can't cross
yeah,
out.
from range 4.
Yeah.
So it's a bomb that hits from downtown. We can also staple stuff like After Advantage onto it, which is really nice. Before close to hit gain advantage, also very nice.
Yep.
Um, Straight up dive text if you want to do that. It's basically the same use case as flight, but you use it for range 3 instead of 4.
And you
Uh,
don't have quite as much power on it as though you needed more.
yeah, yeah. Also, you could like staple the Dragon's Tongue trigger to it to make it a 186, so it stuns focus.
Right.
So lots of pretty reasonable use cases for our triggers. After gain advantage is a funny one as well.
Yeah. So
Although, like,
all of
I would
all of
rather use
this,
assaults on
and
it
yeah,
than
you would rather hit them
Dragon's
with it
Spine.
too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so all of this is uh, a very compelling use case for this ultra when I'm in exceed mode. This is, I think, the first time that we've really like identified a particular card that goes super, super well with the Dragon Slayer. Is this like a notable power boost for him? Like I'm trying to think of what is the Emojin 4 gauge alt that uh gets way easier to
Touch of
confirm.
Divinity.
Yeah, like a touch of divinity situation where like you would exceed for the purpose of hitting it in particular. Um, for people who have not seen the imaging lesson, some nuances with her kit make it so that she can't get some of her wild swing bonuses while invalidating from hand. It's complicated. Um, Blue, you understand my question though, right? That like, is this a compelling enough use case for flipping as the Dragon Slayer if I have access to this?
I think that it is one of the more interesting cards to trigger mix with because it is such an inherently strong shape that you can do a lot of really funny things with it, and it's also just like a shape that is compatible with a lot of different triggers.
Right,
Um, Obviously, we have a few other attacks that also work pretty nicely with it that I have mostly glossed over. Um, you can make Dragon's Flight hit basically the entire board. Uh, Dragon's Tail becomes really fucking stupid if you staple dive or assault triggers onto it,
right, or flight.
or flight, which is dive in this instance.
Sure. Yeah, I did. I see you. Yep. Um. Okay. I guess the other
Dragon's Tongue
mitig.
is like a stable shape, and thus that means that it's pretty good to staple like triggers onto just for extra value.
Right. Sure. I guess the other kind of mitigating factor of Dragon's Heart is like if I have it in my hand, that doesn't instantaneously mean all right, it's time to suddenly flip to Dragon Slayer and completely rewrite my playstyle. Because if I have it in my hand, it also means I just have Swift Destruction in my hand.
Yep, and
Okay.
like basically the calculation you should be making as far as Dragon Slayer and also the TFs really is about like how willing to accept risk and like loss cases are because this mitigates risk by just simply being less risky to interact with than face-upping attacks for value.
Right.
This mitigates risk compared to playing this, because of course it does. I don't
Sure.
need to explain how that works.
Right. Speed good.
Um, and similarly, this is much easier to confirm when you can just make it above curve in
Okay.
some way.
So when I have some other way to mitigate risk, I might not need this as much. So this frees up more. So it goes very well with the Dragon Slayer.
And also, Dragon Slayer does actually do less damage than Iaquis because he doesn't have
He doesn't
Fear's
have the constant
Fury
plus
at
two
all
power.
times.
Sure.
So having a damage bomb that you can trivially confirm for extra damage is more useful for Dragon Slayer than it is for Iaquis. But also, Iaquis doesn't mind playing this because it is still ultimately a giant command grab that's speed 6.
Right. Yeah. A 196 is a side grade, probably a downgrade from what the Dragon Slayer can do with this. Especially because he can also make it a 196 with extra stuff on it. But uh, it is not unplayable when I'm
Yeah.
this Iaquis. Okay.
And a way to look at this card as far as like the Iaquis face upping it playstyle is like, if you're familiar with Tager or Ken, the characters that actually do, or Gabrek, because there was a Gabrek lesson as well.
Yep.
Those characters, when they actually are playing the Big Dumb Ultra, are essentially setting it face up as well.
Yeah. Or they're like
Literally setting this one face up isn't actually that much more risky than what they're doing.
right. Or they're like if you set anything, if you have 4 gauges Ken and you set anything at range 1, your opponent goes, well, that's Shinryuken. It might not
Yeah,
be.
especially if you do quick attack and
Yeah,
then you set a single card.
sure.
Um,
They're obviously assuming that that's what it is. In that way, it's face up. You can still mix up. Like shoutouts to Moriarty who loves range 1 monstrous strength assault as Gabrek.
that's a
To
very good play that beats the expected block response.
eat a
Block
block. Yeah, exactly. It's not
the
face up
mainly
in that way,
range
but
3
in
loses to, yeah.
in terms of like the threat profile you're preventing or you're presenting to the opponent, like there's only one card that they're afraid of at that in that situation.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Makes
this
sense.
one compacts it by making it so there's literally one card they're concerned about, and you're telling them what it is, but like it isn't actually that much different, especially because this character doesn't have an ignore armor threat.
Okay, sure. So yeah, they can just block it. That makes sense. All right,
And
shall
also, if
we
they
move?
block it, you set up range 4.
Yeah,
So like,
you set up all of your other scary stuff, of course. Um, ignore armor, ignore guard is not a trigger, correct? You can't. Yeah, it's before a hit and after.
that
You
that
cannot
is
trigger
correct.
mix with spike.
This is passive text. Actually, a fun playtesting story for you. The original version of Plague Knight actually did mix the entire text box of the attack onto his attack.
Really? Well,
That did not last for more than one version.
it's a good thing that Plague Knight is not. I mean, really, Plague Knight needs that kind of play, right? Like
So true.
that's the exact kind of thing that he needs to be a viable character.
So true.
I know, right? Shall we move on to Dragon's Descent?
Yep. So as I started to say before, this attack is really funny because it's a really strong shape. 2 to 6, 4 speed, 4 guard. These are good fireball numbers, and it hits for 7 printed. Like without any text, this is actually very close to a pretty reasonable shape for 3 gauge. It's like a little under.
Right.
And then of course, if you, being the epic set player you are, manage to fulfill this trigger condition, it hits for 11.
Yeah, which is better than 3 gauge, probably.
Yeah, yeah, you just slam down that Tetris on the opponent and they die.
Right. How how reasonable is that? I mean, I know that this boost is good. We're going to talk about it in a second. Uh, hitting with this twice sounds difficult, right? I probably am not going to have that much gauge. It doesn't have a transform on it itself. You mentioned earlier that this trigger becomes a lot easier to fulfill when I'm stapling it onto other cards.
Yep.
Um, it doesn't seem like hitting for 11 with Dragon's Descent is particularly practical.
That is correct.
Okay. Um, it also doesn't really seem like hitting for 7 is that hard at range for Iaquis.
That is also correct.
This one covers dive.
This one does cover dive.
Okay.
I think you're also seeing the issue with Dragon's Descent, generally speaking, which is despite it being a fairly reasonable shape, and also potentially even being a pretty powerful shape, this is just a shape that Iaquis doesn't necessarily need.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. He'll have to slay every last one through his many other ways to slay every last one. Um, I'm not really missing out on Dragon's Descent by not playing it.
Yep.
Okay. How about Dragon? I like this boost a lot. Actually, I've seen this one played in tournament before. Actually, recently. Um, Tell me about Dragon's Roar.
They certainly did give this character a draw 5 boost for some reason.
They sure
It's
did.
worth noting that it is literally draw 5. That is not effectively draw 6 because of the passive on it, which makes it so that you do not draw for end of turn. And because you do not draw, you're not checking your hand,
Right.
which like clarifies that with the actual text on it. But you're
Right.
functionally just skipping the end of turn draw step entirely.
Right.
So that is
Okay.
actually just draw 5 instead of
So,
draw 6 like a boost that just read draw 5 cards
yeah.
would do.
Yep. And similarly, if I'm at 7 cards, I boost it. Now I've overdrawn, and it doesn't matter because I'm not going to discard at end of turn.
That is correct.
Okay. Um, this is with the exception of Dragon's Tongue, I think, and this transform. There's a lot of centralized card draw here.
Yep.
Okay. This seems like a very big part of my economy on a pretty uncontested ultra. Like, I don't super care about Dragon's Descent. Is this just a very mashable boost then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Bottom
the
text.
play pattern that you described of bottom text that you described of having a high hand already and then using it to overdraw to fish for EXs is a very common strategy with this boost. It is both a reload and also a pressure tool in
And,
that regard.
and overload, sure. Um, Not drawing or discarding at the end of your turn. This is a continuous boost. It sticks around. Um, it seems like I want to get rid of this as quickly as possible once I've drawn my cards, right? Like I would like to strike quickly so that I don't, unless I'm overhand size, I guess. But if I boost, if I do anything else, I am effectively like halting all progress through my deck. I'm not getting any more resources afterward. So do I want to follow this up with a strike kind of quickly?
Usually, yeah. And
Okay.
because the opponent knows you want to do that, they are much more likely to boost something like light.
Right. They won't get rid of it for me.
Yeah, they will
Okay.
instead make it harder for you to initiate.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, Obviously in that situation you would, if you had to, you would prefer teching their light to teching your own boost. If
Of
you
course.
wanted to get rid of this boost, you could just strike.
Yep.
Okay. And Iaquis, with that many cards in hand, probably does not have very much difficulty in maintaining offense for quite a while.
Yeah, and you could even actually play Dragon's Descent there for 11, and it would do more than 11, but
True.
it would be pretty
Yeah.
epic.
I would love to hit for 13. So if they don't get rid of this, or if they do put the light down and just let me keep this around, I am low key threatening the double Dragon's Descent. Um, Still, with that like idea in mind, is this still not a particularly practical use of this ultra
I mean, if you have the resources to do it, then hitting the opponent for 11 or 13
or
is pretty
13?
good.
Yeah, that's true. That's a high number. Numbers don't go that high. Okay, yeah. So probably not going to happen in most games. If I'm gunning for it, it's probably fairly face up.
Yep.
Um, it does have kind of like the low tiger shot paradigm of like sometimes they just won't have anything that they can do about it. But don't expect it to win all the time if I unilaterally gun for that game plan.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Makes perfect sense. Um all right, so that's the kit. Um an interesting mix of effects for a character who seemingly is so straightforward. Like he's missing a lot of components, and then he has a big piece of duct tape in Swift Destruction that kind of papers over a lot of the holes in his kit.
It certainly does.
Ah, that's interesting.
And also to talk a bit about the trigger on Dragon's Descent within the context of Dragon Slayer.
Yeah,
So it's just like for a gauge, boost, or TF area. So that's the value of TFing these, is that you can turn all these attacks into +4 power versions of themselves
right,
by attaching Descent's trigger to them.
right. Which
Um,
get pretty scary with that card in hand.
yeah, the one that you probably would be doing that with is either this or this, as far as that
Sure.
goes, which conveniently are the economic TFs that if you are one to actually value Dragon Slayer highly, are more likely to TF in all likelihood.
Right. Okay, sure. So, much like so Dragon's Heart is a great base on which to staple other effects. This is a great effect on which to staple. Not for the same card, although that'd be fun too, I guess. Swift Destruction, Dragon's Heart with +4 power sounds like a great time if I need to absolutely obliterate every stat check ever presented to me.
Yep.
Um, but okay,
You
so
also, for like a more basic option, it also is checking gauge.
sure,
So these are pretty good. This is pretty good. Just things that hit and also are pretty good at confirming +4 power.
right.
Dragon's Tongue is also another good candidate as far as that goes.
And like if I'm in this mode, I am able to throw mix-ups, right? Um, but the value of this, they do know that this is the triggers that I'm pulling from, right? I reveal that.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So they immediately look at my transforms and at my gauge and at my boost area and figure out what cards are actually viable to hit with in the situation that I'm in. So I do like I'm bleeding some information by playing this by pulling from these triggers in the first place, despite the fact that I'm attacking face down.
Yeah, you can kind of think of this as turning Dragon Slayer for one strike into Turbo Iaquis.
Sure. Yeah,
Your
this
deck is
is
kind of face up, but it
it's semi
hits for
face up, but for plus
+4
four.
power.
I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay. Um. Well, cool. So the Dragon Slayer has really explosive gameplay. He can just do ridiculous things that this Iaquis can't really dream of. He also has like a stronger defensive profile most of the time. It seems like the advantage that Iaquis brings is like more consistent, less fiddly turn over turn offense. Is that correct?
Yeah, this character, which is very unusual for a 7th Cross character, and also kind of unusual for an Exceed character in general, is online from basically the first turn of the game.
Hmm. Yeah,
So he
he
can
doesn't
he
have
can
to build
start
anywhere.
pressuring you immediately, and pressuring you with fairly competent and quite scary offense.
Okay. So that actually kind of reminds me of like Nagoriyuki. Very different character, obviously, but in terms of like where he has to go from turn one, he gets a gauge. He's most of the way online at that point.
Yep.
And like the benefit of Nagoriyuki as a character in a lot of ways is like because I'm scarier than you are at the beginning of the game, I am incentivized to kill you before you come online. Um, is that sort of a similar idea to what Iaquis is trying to do? He's like not a rush down as in throw a million attacks at you, but a rush down as in progress on your life bar before you get a chance to set up your overwhelming late game engine because you're a 7th Cross character too.
To a degree. Obviously, like, he does have his own engine, although it's not quite as secure or as omnipotent as some other 7th Cross characters. It
Right.
just turns him into like a different good character.
Right. Sure. Okay.
But yeah, he is pretty good at playing the like early game rushdown, kill the opponent type game. He's not quite as high risk as Nagoriyuki, because actually, Iaquis kind of has the opposite issue. Nagoriyuki has too much economy. Iaquis has
Right.
very little outside of literally Dragon's Roar, which
Yeah.
is why
This.
Dragon's Roar is important.
Right. Yeah. This one boost and this one transform are like everything he gets economically. Um, on the subject of economy, actually, this is kind of my next question. Um, I have cards that hit really hard. As the Dragon Slayer, I might have a pretty compelling use for cards as triggers, right? I need to spend them from my hand. I have a really, really big draw boost. Um, I have reasonably compelling uses for Gauge. All of those things point to a very tight economy despite the presence of Dragon's Roar. What about just things like the change cards action and the move action? Um, and you're forgetting for a second that I also have a dedicated force card over here that I can spend. Um, is it just like difficult to take universal game actions as Iaquis?
A little bit, but you also don't need to take them that often. You have reasonable in strike positioning with the like tools like these. Like the kit has a reasonable flow so long as the hands are not coming in completely incomprehensible
You're
orders.
not just bricking.
Which like this character also is a little hard to brick with because like these tools mostly do a good job at accenting the normals.
Hmm,
So like you can just also just play normals and then also play things that are like reasonable
sure.
and
And
get by.
a lot of times we've mentioned a couple times like, okay, cool, they dodged Dragon's Spine with that dive. Thank you for setting up Dragon's Tail for me. Um, the dynamics of Iaquis' strike is that I can also make use of my opponent's in strike positioning to do some neutral work for me if I need to. Hopefully,
As far
at
as
least.
like yeah. As far as like CC goes, um you can even though the character's not that strong on defense, he's like fine enough just because he has like, 5 guard at 3 speed, 6 guard at 2 speed, 5 guard at 4 speed for some godforsaken reason.
Right.
And then also just like the general utility of the normals. Like as long as you're in a position where like things exist, you could probably have something you can do that like does something at least.
That would give me the defensive security that I would need to comfortably or semi comfortably CC or prep or something.
Yeah, and like worst case, and of course I mean like normal case because you are also like a zoner, you can just cross out.
Right. Right. I probably have more things to do at range than they do. I'm happy to make them come to me and spend some time on my economy in the meantime. Makes sense to me. All right, so that's economy. Uh, we've talked around the normals quite a bit. I've got an extra copy of Assault. I have some really mean things I can do with stun immune assault tricks with that one transform. I have lots of ways to make these crazy as the Dragon Slayer. Also, they're just really messed up when I any of these on curve buttons are messed up when I throw them as Iaquis. Um, how about just like, you mentioned that these do a good job of accenting the neutral game or the normals game rather. Um, how else is Iaquis using his normals?
Grasp is an attack because you don't exactly need fierce when you have infinite copies of it.
True.
Um, assault, cross, and dive are all like usually attacks, but like if you need tech, you use tech. Backstep can be useful because you're a zoner. Run is sometimes useful, but you probably are mostly playing cross as an attack.
Right.
The norm he like mostly uses normals in a fairly normal way, and like in that regard, I also think like he's similar to Sagat, where Sagat mostly uses the normals in a not unusual way with the context of the character has a fireball, so cross is more of an attack than it is for like
Sure.
I don't know May.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I appreciate you trying really hard not to say uses normals in a normal way. By the way, um, that is a constant struggle in my life in this series. I'm glad that you can share it. You also mentioned that his mid speeds, when they're mid speeds, dive and spike all the time. Well, spike some of the time. Sometimes I have Swift Destruction up. Um, are less useful with his character ability, but also they're just cards. I can play a range 3 dive. I can play a spike if I need to, but they're not like better for him than they would be for anybody else.
Yeah, with the mid speeds and also to a degree the slows, the things that are more consistently answerable, you can think of these as things that force the opponent to do something. So like if for whatever reason you wanted the opponent to play cross or assault, these are pretty good at making the opponent want to play cross or assault.
Sure. Okay. And
I don't think
similarly,
they're necessarily great for that purpose. You mostly are going to do this if you want to play Spike.
right. Okay. What about like defend and light?
Obviously, Iaquis does not lack for power, so he doesn't necessarily value the inherent properties of Sweep, but Sweep is still a great card.
Right.
Because of the nature of Iaquis's ability, Light is also a very primo boost for the character to have, because this effectively is a two-turn setup way of the Warrior Now Strike
Yeah, it
that makes
is.
you more defensively secure on the opponent's turn. So, like, lots of good reasons to boost Light as Iaquis.
Okay. Yep. That seems like and again, like it is almost impossible to completely count sweep out. Everybody wants to play sweep sometimes. Even a
Yeah,
character
like
with another six
you can.
guard, 2 speed button
Yeah,
can't use this at range one, for example.
and you can also think of this as like, oh, it's Dragon's Tail, except it doesn't lose to grab.
Sure. Yeah. No, I would love to just hit for 8 on a sweep. Um,
So lots of good properties that you get from playing face up sweep, and also forcing the opponent to play literally dive or cross or perish
right.
is also pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It especially if I'm trying to bait out stuff, but also like make them have it, right? Because if they
Yep.
don't, I am winning the game off of that interaction. Um, how about defend actually, really quick?
So a lot of Iaquis's attacks have guard and thus get marginal benefits from defend. The big winners of defend would be literally assault and then dragon's tongue.
Right.
And the fact that we have two of this instances of this shape does mean that we do actually get a little bit of extra value from defend. It also makes it so our attack is more likely to execute, which combos with this TF.
Okay. So not any more reason to use spike than normal. Slightly more reason to use defend than normal, but not in like an obvious like uh this is the card that is going to make or break Iaquis way.
Yeah, like
This is the
you
card
have
that's
a
going to
good
make or
set.
break Iaquis.
You have a card that sets up Spike pretty reasonably. It also sets up a bunch of other stuff. Spike or defend rather sets up a couple of things for Equus that are nice, and also like is an okay pass turn boost while also getting rid of potentially a reading liability if that's a thing you care about doing.
Right.
So like you will use Spike in however you use Spike. Because the character does face ups, unless you are specifically trying to get a assault or dive response, you probably aren't gonna, or like you have the +4 speed in play.
Right.
You probably are not going to face up Spike, and playing face down has some inherent awkwardness because it's like, oh, he's playing face down because he's playing a mix up. It's answerable,
I wonder if it's a mid speed.
which of course the way you get around that is by you know playing regular ass succeed.
Occasionally doing yeah. So this is the level 2 of Sagat. God, Iaquis. Where
Also of Scott.
right, sure. If you always play face up, except for when you don't because it wouldn't be safe to, your opponent looks at the things that you would be unwilling to play face up, and you go, "Oh, okay, it's one of those. Let me play around those." Um, so occasionally, forego the use of your character ability just to keep the threat of a mix-up alive in your opponent's mind.
Yep.
Yep, makes perfect sense.
And in that regard, it's the thing I always say: predictability is the enemy. You don't want
Yeah,
to be predictable with your habits, even with a character like this that sets our attack face up and thus rewards you in some ways with being predictable.
yep. No, that makes sense. Be predictable unpredictably. It also occurs to me we didn't mention this one in particular, but the way to quote it, like the meme way to diffuse speed is to move to range one where spike doesn't hit you anymore. Here is a way if you wanted to set
Oh
range
yeah, you
three
do
from
have
range one.
QBD with Swift Destruction, which means you're able to confirm Spike. It's the same dynamic that Sagat has with
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Okay. Um, so worth mentioning for completion's sake. But uh, you don't need help to make a +4 speed button work on a character who hits this hard. We got 2 normals left.
Yep.
Focus and block. Any particular thoughts about them?
Focus is a good attack. Reading is a good boost. I feel like most people probably know how they intend to play focus,
Yep,
regardless of like character.
agreed.
For my part of it, I think that Iaquis has enough slight defensive awkwardness in melee that I value focus more as an attack than I do reading as a boost. But reading has some obvious great utility for Equus. Reading dive, play face up assault or dragon's tongue. You
Sure.
snipe out attack. You hit the opponent for 6. They get fucking owned. Um, Similarly, like the like mini game of, oh, what's the opponent playing when you do like a relatively safe reading, like range 1 reading spike, and then you play something, you can just like skip that by saying, I'm actually just going to hit you for 5 if this reading whiffs.
Right. This is the me asking this question is not saying it's a good idea to do, but I'm curious, and maybe it is a good idea to do if it works this way. Can I boost reading? It's an instant boost, right? When does it go to discard? Immediately upon naming a normal
All
attack?
right, so let's say that this attack is in your hand and you name an attack. You set this attack. We'll say you set it face up for
Sure.
demonstration purposes. You have set your attack. Reading is now resolved.
Okay. So uh it is not in my boost area at the time of uh this hit trigger. I could not, for example, reading as the Dragon Slayer playing another focus to hit for 8.
That is correct.
That's a real shame. Um,
It is a real shame.
moving on.
You'll just
Um,
have to settle for hitting for like
many other ways
6.
to hit for 8. Although, listen, 10 delta reading sounds or 10 delta focus sounds pretty good to me.
So true.
Okay, and I feel like there's a very similar, focus is awesome, reading is often awesome, block is almost never awesome, but sometimes you need it. Parry is often what you need. It's pretty tough to get super excited about either side of this card.
Yep, use as applicable.
Yep, makes sense. Um, Other than the obvious one over here in Dragon's Fire, are there any obvious normals that you are often willing to spend as force?
Low key spike.
Yeah,
Like
no, that makes
the
sense.
the the
Of the ones that you've
big
mentioned,
big value proposition of spike is that it is your one instance of ignore armor in the entire kit.
right,
So it does a thing, but also the opponent only has so much armor. You don't necessarily need IA.
right. You can just hit them very hard. Okay, makes perfect sense to me. So that's the normals. We talked econ, we talked the kit, we talked the game plan. The game plan is basically to play Exceed with big numbers. Um, any other play style considerations about honestly either Iaquis? Anything else you wanted to mention for either of them?
Mini guide for the normal triggers for Dragon Slayer, since I didn't mention them.
Sure,
Grasp gives you positioning control, which is really useful when you are playing things on defense. Because positioning control on defense is very strong. That's part of what makes Grasp a strong defensive option.
sure. It's like gaining advantage uh, afterward, right? Like if you do it on defense, you are ensuring that you're able to take advantage of that positioning right away.
Yep. Cross after retreat, similar deal, positioning control. It also makes a card like Dragon's Flight, for example, very, very safe, and also probably sets up a range that you have reasonable plays at.
Right.
Assault, godly trigger along with dive.
Yeah.
Those are like the reason you are playing Dragon Slayer is because you can staple assault, dive, and Dragon Flight's triggers onto other attacks.
Sure. No, that
Like
again, the use case is kind of it makes a case for itself very easily. Uh, Above curve movement, gain advantage on hit, easy stuff. Huge movement. If you somehow don't stun the opponent with all the other nonsense you're doing, cool. You also can't be hit.
Spike doesn't really do anything because it has no triggers.
Yep.
Sweep and Focus have economic triggers that are decent but not amazing. You're probably going to be trigger mixing more with your specials and ultras than
Sure.
Sweep and Focus, and using Sweep and Focus to accept the triggers.
Right.
Because it turns out that Sweep with Dive or Assault's text on it is very silly.
Yeah, it's messed up. That's very true.
Block has functionally no trigger for Dragon Slayer because you probably have the TF that gives you Block's text on
True.
all of your attacks.
Right. Okay. Other than sweep and focus, are there any cards among the normals that accept triggers particularly well?
Assault, grasp,
Okay. Your regular on curve offense stuff that's already hitting well.
cross as well.
Okay. So a lot of so yeah, that's interesting. A lot of the same things that work well with the triggers applied to them are also sources of great triggers. So once again, I'm gonna have to make interesting decisions if I play this line. That's a real shame.
Yep. Luckily, you have like Dragon's Tongue as a very good recipient of triggers as well.
Yep, sure. I've got Dragon's Heart if I want it. Um,
Yep.
among these, I think we probably talked about most of them at some point or another. But any other great trigger recipients around in my kit?
These are like the best four. Fireballs are really bad to take triggers because triggers tend to move you in, and fireballs don't want to be moved
Don't
in.
want to move in, sure. Okay. Yep, and I mean a lot of these cards I would like to hit with anyway. Maybe less so Dragon's Tongue, but hey, if Dragon's Tongue is worse Assault and Assault takes triggers well, that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Um, sure, that makes sense. And also, much like the paradigm of my normals being often very good recipients and very good sources of triggers, several of these cards I would love to hit with. Again, Dragon's Tongue is kind of the one that I'm like, meh, that's fine, I guess. Um, making a decision between whether I want before +2 power on Dragon's the attack or before +2 power on whatever else I want is like that's a decision I'll have to make. Similar with Dragon's Flight. Putting anything on it will make it awesome, but putting it onto anything else will also make that thing awesome.
Yep. And in that
Okay.
regard, these are probably like some of your staple cards to staple triggers onto because they aren't exactly providing useful triggers.
Right. Right. And they're useful in their own right as attacks that hit things. They get kind of dumb with triggers on them. That makes perfect
And
sense.
also, it's unlikely that you actually need like all of these triggers. So these are like some of your staple like attacks to just put things onto along with like the slows.
Sure. And also, I
And then
mean,
like
Iaquis hits really hard. Um,
yeah,
the Dragon Slayer can hit really hard if he needs to. The Dragon Slayer is almost by definition a mid to late game consideration because I need to get there first.
yep,
Um, I'm probably going to have similarly to having to play a lot of games of Iaquis to see all of the things he can do because he hits so hard and the game won't last long enough. I probably won't be able to make use of all of my things as the Dragon Slayer because the game is almost over when I'm doing all of those things.
that is
Um,
correct.
okay, so don't, as a knock-on effect of that, don't worry too much about um, giving up grasp to put on something else when I would rather put something else on grasp or whatever. The game's almost over. Just shuffle up and play again next time and do it the other way.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, makes sense. Um, any other sort of general strategic notes, or shall we talk counterplay?
All right. Well, I have one last strategic note to note, which is look at Iaquis's character art real quick.
Yeah.
You see that on his leg? It's an axe. They're
Yes.
afraid to give my dude an axe kick because they would know how powerful it would be on him.
Yeah. Actually having an axe. Can I make an axe kick out of? Hold on. Um, Swift Destruction Spike is almost an axe kick.
I guess.
That headcanon, that's what he's doing when he Swift Destruction spikes you. He just kicks you with his axe leg.
So true.
I feel like it's also required to make the joke that this is a character. This is not my joke for reference, but obviously, this is a character who has how many melee weapons on his person? One, two, three, four. Looks like 5 to 7. Um, he's a zoner.
Yeah, it's classic.
Rim shot, but um, an ancient Exceed joke. This is the Exceed dad joke corner, basically. Um, I like that actually. I think that's kind of funny. Okay, so it sounds like at this point we have exhausted everything there is to talk about Iaquis himself, because we've entered the Exceed dad joke corner.
So
Um,
true.
I'm sorry that D isn't here on this lesson to partake. Um,
I'm sure he'll just
any
have to enjoy it on his own time.
I know. Yeah. No, somewhere, wherever he is right now, D, if you can hear this, we're making horrible puns without you. I hope that you forgive us. Um, counterplay. Uh, uh, I can kind of predict some of what you're going to be talking about here because a lot of stuff that Iaquis is doing is literally face up. But
Yeah.
how do people deal with what Iaquis is doing?
Um. So obviously, there's the line up your answers with his questions. Consideration of it, which is the obvious part. This character neutral is bad,
Right.
so you can beat him in neutral, and his economy is also fairly bad outside of literally the one boost. Um. So pressuring him during the gaps, standard rush down stuff,
Sure.
is also like just how you deal with him.
Okay. I mean, he's also like because he's essentially online from turn one, and you probably aren't, right? You are incentivized to get your game plan going quickly so that you can compete with him. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in that regard, maybe taking the Dragon's Flight focus trade would be worth it because if you're a Street Fighter character or a Guilty Gear character or a BlazBlue character, you are trading down by one. You are at a range where you are better than Iaquis. You drew a card, he
You have
consumed a card,
you have a gauge.
and you have a gauge.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So get the stuff that you use to win the game online quickly enough to compete with his stuff, and then out neutral him and have answers to his attacks.
Yeah, more or less. Again, the character relative to a lot of other some of the cross characters plays exceed. A
Right.
lot of his stuff is going to be answerable, and it's about like getting the answers from the opponent. So like them just out resource managing you, out neutraling you, doing all that stuff is like a pretty good way to make sure Iaquis just like isn't able to do what he needs to do to win.
Sure. Is the counterplay for the Dragon Slayer like meaningfully different, or are you pretty much doing the same stuff? Like, does he have different weaknesses?
He does less damage on average, which means that like similar to like Plague Knight, blocking payouts is more meaningfully crippling.
Okay.
And in that regard, it's also just like kind of similar to playing against Plague Knight, where like yeah, the character is every like couple turns going to do some insane bullshit. Plague Knight has his own flavors of bullshit because he has way more economy than Dragon Slayer does in
Right.
exchange for having a little bit of variance.
Right.
Um,
What
so
if one of the after what if one of the triggers you could staple with the Dragon Slayer was Dragon's Roar? Is kind of the Plague Knight experience.
very true. And also, what if you had instead of Swift Destruction, you had Way of the Warrior Now Strike and also Monster Strength,
Yeah. True. Plague Knight good,
which
by the way.
yeah. But similar to Plague Knight, you have to think more three-dimensionally about what the attack shapes that the character is going to play because he can represent way more attack shapes. But you can kind of boil it down to just the good attack shapes, which is like dive grasp, dragon's flight, sweep, stuff like that.
Right.
And if you're expecting those, yes, you probably will eat a couple of them. But ideally, if you've been playing against Equus well up to him getting to the Dragon Slayer, you are ahead on life, similar to like someone like Arcune. So he gets you with a couple of bullshit strikes, and then you still win anyways because numbers.
Sure. And he's actually without those crazy crippling payouts, he sort of lost ability to make comebacks because he doesn't hit as hard as Iaquis does turn to turn.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. That makes sense. But other than that, I mean, also in order to play against the Dragon Slayer, you need to have played some amount of game against Iaquis. The
Yep.
counterplay will, at least for that portion of the game, be identical because it's the same character.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Anything else counterplay wise to mention? Bad neutral, take advantage, pressure him in the gaps, get online quickly, call his mix.
Well, not really call mix, but yeah. The
Oh yeah,
answer
call his answer. Yeah,
answer
answer his
thing.
questions rather.
Um don't stand at a range where he can hit you with an uncontested dragon spine.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Have a plan if you cross back out. Also seems like a pretty good one.
Yeah. So like a character I mentioned her already. A character like May or Ken have rushdown style, and Giovanna has trigger.
Right.
Obviously, rushdown style on May is called something else. It's called like Go, I think.
Yeah. Or charge.
Yeah, it's one of those two.
Yeah.
I think Go is the draw boost. So
Yeah,
Charge
I'm
is
pretty yeah, that's on
the rushdown
Sparkle, I
style.
think, and then charge is on fish.
Anyways, those characters have rushdown style. so they can cross out. Ken has Kendoken, so he can also just say, "I have more instances of Fireball that hits for 6+ than you
Right.
do,"
Right.
and just hit Iaquis with Kendoken over and over again, and win numerically there. Most characters don't have that privilege,
Right.
so they probably will need a real answer to if they cross out, or just simply to not cross out.
Okay. Yeah. So if you are the kind of character who can beat him at range, you'll know it. Um, if you're not, you look for ways that you can come back in. If you don't have those things, you probably shouldn't be leaving in the first place because you're probably a close range character.
Yeah, and if you're a close range character, there is a very, very good chance that your melee is better than Iaquis's, because
Right.
Iaquis's melee is
Even
built off of.
even when he's threatening a big scary dragon's tail, you might actually have an answer to it.
Yeah, yeah, just like looking your kid for like a command grab, and that like probably deals with this.
Right.
I know not every character has like a 1 to 2 command grab, but like I don't know, just like good characters like Bang.
True. Yeah. True. Oh man. Uh, kick. Um, not the kick. The kick. You know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, what is kick?
Completely destroys face up. Dragon's tail. Okay. Yep, makes sense. You got an EX attack. Surprise him with an EX attack when he thinks he has a sure thing.
Yeah,
So,
just uh, as mentioned before, like at the start of the lesson, characters that have like fast attacks that are able to disrupt positioning are like also just like generally good into Iaquis,
yep,
which is like a Lucia or a Vega or Cammy.
sure.
Cammy actually has a lot of funny properties into characters that are this shape. Um, and
So,
unlike Sagat, Iaquis is like slower on average than a lot of Cammy's tools, so they actually like work better into him than into
right.
Sagat.
So, despite how scary he is, your character is probably one of pick one, a zoner, a grappler, uh, or extremely mobile, and has a lot of positioning effects. Like this covers those categories cover a huge number of characters in Exceed. You probably can leverage the thing that your character is good at to beat Iaquis in some way.
Ideally, yeah. And
Okay.
like if you're not a zoner or a grappler or the third thing that you mentioned, hypermobile, that was what it was.
Yeah.
Then I don't know, maybe you're playing Bang and like your tools just match up well into Iaquis' tools anyways, and he's not allowed to play the game, so
Yep.
lol.
Yep. No, makes sense. You will probably have answers to what he's trying to do. Is the point that we're making? Okay. Cool. So that's counterplay. Often the way that we end these lessons is by scrolls the screen up, talking about characters who are similar to Iaquis. I feel like the two that have come up the most so far are Plague Knight and obviously Sagat. Um, Plague Knight specifically for Dragon Slayer. Are there
Yeah,
any other
yeah.
characters who have a similar playstyle that you would want to recommend to fans of Iaquis or vice versa?
Let's see. I think that Heidi from season 1 is worth checking out. Um, if your opponent is willing to play into characters that are probably overpowered, Melian is also worth checking out.
Okay.
Depending on exactly what you like about Equus, Everest might also be worth checking out.
Just force for power has a similar flavor. Largely immobile, has lots of weird range effects. I can see the comparison.
Let's see. Anyone else from season 2 that feels reasonable to recommend? You should check out Remulus because she's epic. I don't actually think they have. Well, they have a really funny similarity, which is that Remulus has most of a Shoto kit because of design lineage.
Yep.
And Iaquis also has most of a Shoto kit because design lineage. So if you want to play a weird 7th cross Shoto that also is like incidentally a fairly strong character, then check out Remulus as well.
Yep. There's also again, this is not how Remulus is typically played, but the Yellow Death and the Dragon Slayer uh have some things in common for sure. Maybe not
Very
in
true.
gameplay, but at least in text they do. I feel
Uh,
like I feel like you
Sagat is a pretty reasonable choice.
definitely Sagat. Yeah. I feel like for not leaving Seventh Cross really quick, if what you like is setting face up attacks, then you can play Imogene.
True. Because she does set face up attacks. Her upside to setting face up attacks is really funny because it's that she has really high card quality.
Yeah.
and
She has
also
sweeps.
consistent favored ranges, and then also a curation ability for wild swings.
Right. Yeah, and
So
lots of weird, like, when you set your attack face up, you get um access to life gain and sometimes bonus power and various other things. Like, she's a lot fiddlier and less immediately obviously why you would want to set face up attacks, but she has a similar uh benefit of not playing mix ups, basically.
although similar to like this lesson where if setting face up attacks sounds icky, then you can just simply not do it and only use your ability on defense, which is a way to play Imogene and probably would result in you also valuing her exceed mode higher than I personally do.
Sure, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. People who play the Hecatoncheir really don't like offensive wild swings face up for some reason.
yeah, I don't know why. It's really weird.
Yep. Anyway, Sagat, a
Yeah,
lot like
yeah,
Iaquis in many ways.
you should probably check out Sagat as like your first priority
Yep,
from Iaquis, and maybe also the reverse, where if you really like Sagat, maybe you'll like Iaquis. Check
yep,
him out.
it's true.
Um, Fight is another like kind of fucked up zoner that for some reason gains a shitload of power while also having like a zoner kit.
Yep.
Um, so maybe check out Fight Fight the robot. Is there anyone else from season 4 that I like the look of for Iaquis? Probably not.
Yeah, I
I
feel
guess
like,
also Plague Knight, because Dragon
yeah,
Slayer. If you want to play Dragon Slayer, but from the start of the game and have like the thing that you're trading there be like a bit of variance, but it's actually mostly fake variance, because of how the character is built.
right.
Then Plague Knight is a very good option.
Yeah, it's either variance or it's more expensive, but on a character with amazing economy.
Yep.
Okay. How about any Blaze Blue standouts that might scratch an Iaquis itch?
All right. Here's my hot take. And by hot take I mean this is a take I've had for most of Blaze Blue, the Exceed set's existence, which is I think that Rachel is actually very similar in appeal to a character like Sagat and by extension Iaquis.
Okay. I am not immediately upset about this take. Elaborate, please, because I like Rachel a lot. So I'm curious.
So like there's an obvious really big difference, which is that Rachel has a lot more mobility than Sagat and Iaquis.
Right.
She just is able to choose the board state very consistently. But the thing that she shares with Sagat and Iaquis that like really ties them all together, in my opinion, is the really intense focus on resource management.
Yep.
Um, and then also the way that their neutral is shaped is very similar between the three of them. Neutral and also like their like attack kits, where all of them have fairly competent melees, fairly competent but like a little weird melees,
Yep.
and then also a neutral game that is mostly built off of incremental advantages rather than big fuck you boosts. But they do usually have like one big fuck you boost because you
Sure.
have to.
Sure. No, that again, that tracks pretty well. I feel like with maybe Sagat more so than Iaquis, because Iaquis can make up the difference quickly. If you make an economic mistake with these characters, it can be game losing.
Yeah.
So and that definitely gives me Rachel vibes.
For a probably a little bit easier to like see the comparison. I think that Kokonoe also hits some similar notes.
Okay.
Kokonoe is like if you like the promise of the Dragon Slayer, but you want to play the face up man instead. If you want like something closer to that where you get to do all the fun little fiddly bits, Kokonoe's boost kit is really great for that. And then also she has a more generally like aggressive leaning game plan that also involves like projectiles and fireballs and like lots of really cool stuff.
Okay.
Uh, Kokonoe is a fun character, by the way. You should check her out.
Looking
Um,
forward to that lesson.
uh, I guess also like Nine the Phantom, because Nine the Phantom is like a combination of Ryu and Sagat, which means that there's some lineage there from Iaquis because
Right.
like Iaquis into Sagat and then into Nine.
Iaquis is her great grandfather.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And when he looks at Navy pressure, he goes back in my day. my attack had after gain advantage and had a much better range band and 6
Yep.
guard for some godforsaken reason.
Yep.
And then she's like, "Sure, grandpa, I bet you also are racist." And then she, like, throws a meteor at him or something.
Yeah, and then she teleport steps out and does something crazy. She texts Swift Destruction 4 times.
I don't have enough experience with season 6 to really comment, and also the zoners in it feel meaningfully different enough that it's hard to be like, "Oh, yeah, this one is totally a Sagat."
Yeah.
So I'm
Uh
just gonna
yeah,
skip it.
I mean the only one who starts to tick like a couple of Sagat boxes is like Phonon because she has projectiles that push and bonus power. Um in
That is
practice,
true.
I don't think they're very similar at all. Um
Yep.
but sure. Actually, you know what? It's probably Carmine.
I guess, but, like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Also, no. It
There's, like,
a couple
vague
turns of
similarities between Gordeau and Iaquis and Sagat, but, like, they don't actually really come up in how the characters play and exceed.
yeah, I can see that. For a couple turns of the game, you could also convince me that Hyde is his owner. Um,
When he hits you with the pizza and then retreats and then hits you with the pizza again
yeah,
for 7.
the double decker pizza feels a lot like what I might be dealing with when I'm playing a competent Iaquis for a couple of turns. But no, to your point, I think you're right. The zoners in this season don't really hit those notes. Um, how about Guilty Gear?
Um, I'm gonna give a few different answers
Sure.
that are gonna be kinda dependent on what you're um, if you want literally zoner who is good and who also is incidentally good in melee, and that melee utility is mostly built off of being able to play normals better than the opponent. Happy Chaos is very similar to that.
Okay.
Um, if you want like boss character who is scary and is good generally everywhere, I think that Ramlethal is pretty good at that. Um, and then if you want zoner competent melee, but and also like a little some weird shapes, I think Axel is kind of good for that. I think that all these characters have some elements of Iaquis and Sagat in them, but don't have the full package. I think that probably the closest of those three is like Axel or Ramlethal, probably slightly favoring Ramlethal for me.
Okay. Yep. No, I can see that. Um, well, cool. All right. I mean, a lot of really cool characters there. Equus is old enough that a lot of people who came into the Exceed community a little bit later and might be newer and hopefully are getting some value out of a show like this. Um, if you're fans of these characters, go check out Equus. He might, despite being a grandfather, he might have some things to teach you. He might be a fun character to try out. Um,
Yeah.
well, awesome. Blue, I think we can close the book on the Iaquis and Sagat duology. Um, been a blast talking to you as always. I really appreciate your time and your expertise.
Yeah, I love
Um,
talking about Sagat and Equus, so
yeah, no, they seem really fun. Looking forward to trying it out. Folks at home, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I will see you all for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
yeah. See ya.
See ya.